Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please take your seats. I just want to make sure that all of the non-voting are in the section to my right. I know that's a little unusual. This section here should be for the voters. So if you're a non-voter, please make sure you find your way to the section on my right. Hopefully this will be our last town meeting where we aren't sitting in the dark. There are plans to redo the lighting this summer, so next fall should be 100% better. So if you would please take your seats. I declare that we have a quorum present. I'm going to declare the meeting open. If we would all please stand for the presentation of the colors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you just remain standing for a moment of silence, as we remember some faithful workers who have given their time to the town of Wareham. Patricia Ann Schaff. Patricia worked in the clerk of the court's office in Wareham for many, many years, and then she worked at the Deacon Elementary School in the main office. Jerry Barrows, many of you that have been coming to town meeting for several years, many years. Jerry was the first and foremost who would step up to the plate and become a town teller for town meeting and never missed a town meeting. Whitey Bradford Moss. Brad attended Wareham High School and graduated in 1956. He worked as a Wareham police officer for 3 years and then joined the Wareham Fire Department and left Wareham Fire Department and became a chief down in Dennis. So if we would just remember these people who gave so much time and effort to our town as people who were willing to step up to the plate. Thank you. The town clerk has certified to me that the warrant has been posted in all the proper places. You may have a seat. We will move on with our town meeting. To my left, we have the town clerk, Michelle Bissonette. And on my right, we have our attorney, Bowen, town administrator, Derek Sullivan, our Board of Selectmen, Judith Whiteside, Patrick Tropiano, Peter Teitelbaum, and Jim Muniz. And then Bernie, I'm going to have you introduce your finance committee because I can't see how they're seated. Oh, I forgot Alan, I'm sorry. Alan Slavin. It's hard to see.
Jody Smith, Finance Committee.
Dave Hurd, Finance Committee.
Bernie Pigeon, Chair.
Matthew Rose, Finance Committee.
Norma Scoggin, Finance Committee.
Jerry Stefanski.
Dom Camerano.
Tom Worthen.
That's all of us, Madam Moderator.
Thank you.
Madam Moderator, point of order.
What is your point?
On behalf of a grateful town, she's been doing this since 2010. I can't imagine standing up here and doing what she did for the amount of time that she did it in front of big gatherings. She has dealt with controversial issues. She has handled the meetings in a fair and even-handed manner, and we're going to miss you like hell.
Thank you. Yeah. And now a song. You don't want to hear me sing. I wanted to open the meeting by thanking all of the people over the years, and I'm not going to name them one by one, that I have had the opportunity to work with who have helped walk through, prepare, get ready for town meeting, and especially to all the voters that came out for each and every town meeting. Town meeting is your purest form of government, and to participate and have a say, that's what it's about. You will still see me around, and I'm not stepping aside and retiring entirely, but it's time to move on to another project, and I want to give my all to 2 other projects that I'm involved with. So again, thank you to everyone that I've worked with. Thank you to you, the voters, for coming out and taking an interest in the town. I've been coming to town meeting for 58 years. So I really appreciate, I know what it takes to come to town meeting, participate, to learn about what the articles are, and to think them through and to vote appropriately. So thank you. Town meeting does need some rules. The duties of the moderator and procedures of town meeting not specifically provided for the law are determined by rules contained in the 75th edition of Robert's Rules of Order, town meeting time, town meeting tradition, and those rules which are vested to the moderator by state law and by tradition. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 15, whenever a 2/3 vote is required by statute, a vote may be declared by the moderator without account and recorded as such by the clerk upon such declaration, provided, however, that if 7 or more members of town meeting doubt the vote, a counter vote shall be taken. This is in accordance with Article 12 of the October 27, 2003 town meeting and approved by the Attorney General in November of 2003. If a vote is required, in order to be counted, voters must be seated. You need to hold your cards up high so that the tellers can see them and count them. Please don't put them down until each teller has indicated that they've finished counting your row. The warrant, which was duly posted in every precinct and posted by the town clerk, is the agenda for town meeting. Only items on the agenda can be discussed, and town meeting does not come to an end until all of the agenda items on the warrant have been decided either by approval, by being defeated, or no action taken. As moderator, I'll ask for a motion on each article. You should listen carefully to the motion as it's stated, since the vote and the debate is on the motion. Now, sometimes the motions may differ a little bit from what you see in your warrant. And the reason for that is generally when a warrant is put together, not all the information is known, and you also want to make the warrant article a little broad so that we have some flexibility on the floor with the motions. Following the motion, I'll ask the proponent to speak to the motion, and then I will ask the Board of Selectmen for a vote of the board, and then the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee, and then debate will be open. Voters should approach the microphones on either side of the aisle, and you must be recognized by the moderator before speaking. Please, no more than 2 people at a microphone, and if you could safely distance still, it's greatly appreciated. Please state your name when you come to the microphone, and your remarks must be limited to the content and the specifics of the article that is before us. That allows us to get through town meeting in a swift manner and finish all of our business instead of coming for, as we did my very first meeting, for 6 nights. So if we can stick to the subject, that would be help. I'm going to ask you to be civil and respectful, and I will not tolerate any personal attacks to anyone. There'll be no calling out, no applause, and no rude behavior. And any person who persists in disorderly conduct will be warned by the moderator and asked to leave. It's been a tradition that the proponent of the article will have 5 minutes to speak, and that the voters wishing to speak to the article will have 2 minutes. Now, I may not cut somebody off in mid-sentence, and I will give them a few seconds to finish up. I will exercise my discretion as the moderator in ascertaining the overall status of the issue, of the discussion or the debate, and what's been said. I preside over the meeting, I regulate the meeting, decide all questions of order, and I make the public declaration of the vote at the end. To offer an amendment, a voter needs to give the text to the town clerk in writing. The moderator will recognize the mover of the amendment, and then the amendment becomes debated and then voted either up or down, and depending upon how that vote comes out, it may or may not become part of the main article. A motion to reconsider, if approved by a simple majority, enables a majority in an assembly to bring back for further consideration a motion that has already been voted on. And the purpose in reconsidering a vote is to permit correction of hastily ill-advised or erroneous action, or to take into account added information or a changed situation that has developed since the taking of the vote. After reviewing practices in other towns and based on prior town meeting tradition, the policy for reconsideration is that it must be moved on the same day the vote to be reconsidered was taken. It must be made by a member who voted on the prevailing side, and it must be seconded, and it is debatable. And it will only be permitted if there is hasty, ill-advised, or erroneous action, or if there's additional information that was not previously known. Now, non-voters are welcome to attend, and I want to make sure that all non-voters are sitting over there to my right. We do have a photo policy. This is a legislative body, and as such, photos are not permitted. The only exception will be for the press, which did approach me before the meeting and asked for permission, and I have granted permission for the press, but they cannot take a photo during a vote. If for some reason, and it happened once, we have a fire alarm, please exit swiftly, carefully, but when you come back in, make sure you come back in this door so that we can make sure we only have voters coming back in. If you're parked in the fire lane, I would strongly suggest that you might want to go out and move your vehicle so that it does not get towed. There's also a non-smoking rule on school property. If you feel you need to go have a smoke, you need to leave the property entirely. There's no food or drink permitted except for water. And if you do have a bottle of water, please make sure that you take it with you and put it in the trash. Having said all that, are there any questions? And if not, we're ready to move on. Thank you. Our first order of business is going to be our consent agenda. A consent agenda is generally put together to help move town meeting forward. They're usually articles which come up year after year. They're routine. They generally don't generate any questions. So I will go through the consent agenda, If you have a question and you don't want it to be in the consent agenda, then please say hold. We will take it out and we will put it back in the order in which it appears in the warrant. So our consent agenda for tonight will be Article 1. Article 1. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I move on, thank you. So you just threw me totally off. Would the Board of Selectmen like to address the body?
Yes, please. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 283rd year that the town of Wareham has held town meetings. Tonight we have a lot of business to conduct, as there are over 40 articles to be considered. Many of these articles are recurring articles that come up every year to accomplish the routine business of running a town. Our moderator has worked tirelessly to assure that this meeting runs smoothly and that the voters have a chance to conduct the business of the town. There is no one article that is any more important than any others. There are several articles that some of you feel passionately about. I ask that you treat each presenter of each article with respect and civility and listen carefully to the facts that are presented to you. There has been a great deal of misinformation spread through social media. This venue is the one where you will get clarification of the facts. Our town government operates under our charter, our bylaws, and the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Please remember that as you participate in this meeting, and again, thank you for taking the time to participate.
Thank you, and I apologize. I just was a little off balance. Mr. Pigeon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The Finance Committee acts as your agent. We advise you on a practical viewpoint for all of these articles. A lot of emotionalism has been in this one, this town meeting, as the previous two. But we approach it as to how much it will cost, what is the benefit or value to our community, and then you make the final decisions. The previous or the earliest or beginning pages of our report has a lot of charts and a lot of indication as to how much money we have as the sources and how we spend a lot of it. Indeed, but that's all your decision, and that's what we'll decide here this evening. When you see someone on Facebook who says we pay too much money in taxes, I urge you to read the book and find out just how much we don't have. We are getting to a point where we are very short-staffed in many departments. There's some 15 open applications posted that we fund, but no one is applying. There is also a shortage in just about every department. At one point in our police department, we had upwards of 70 officers back in the 80s. We're now down to 47. And yet we rank number 10 in the incident report of all comparable cities throughout the state. They are very overburdened. Our maintenance department, you complain about the potholes. He only has 12 men for 190 miles of roadway, 5 beaches, 3 cemeteries, all the municipal buildings, and everything else that we can think of that we need to do. Our water resources, they're short-staffed. It's just people aren't applying. Practically every office within the town hall is short at least one or half person. These are the decisions we make, and we have to decide if we want to do greater things. During the candidates' night, they spoke in terms of an override. That's something we must consider. It would be foolish not to. We may not want to do it, that's fine, but we deserve to our fellow Wareham people to consider it. What we'll do here this evening, though, will satisfy all our current services. And I want you to know that in reviewing all these individual department budget, they all spoke in terms of being shorthanded. They all refused to say they were a priority. We have an extraordinary group working for us, an extraordinary group. They deserve everything we can give them, and unfortunately, we can't give everything they deserve. So I think this evening, consider, yes, there's a lot of emotionalism, as well there should be. We deserve that in our decision-making process. It's necessary for who we are. But please understand, there is only a limited amount of monies to satisfy that. So I know you'll all give your due diligence and vote what is in the best interest of our community. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Pigeon. Okay, so now we're back to our consent agenda. And again, the consent agenda is a way of moving things forward and bundling some articles that are routine articles. So the first article in the consent agenda is the election of officers, which is generally Article 1 in your warrant, and that's going to happen on May 3rd. And there's nothing that we actually do for that article except make sure that it goes forward and that people make sure that they get out and vote. The second consent agenda is recurring business. This is an annual article that comes up year after year. It has 4 parts to it. The first part is a housekeeping article, which authorizes the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator to accomplish the legal and administrative details necessary to enter into agreements and contracts involving state and federal funds. The second part of recurring business is another housekeeping article which authorizes the town treasurer collector to maintain sufficient balances in town accounts to avoid bank service charges. The third part of Article 2 is routine but important because it complies with state law requirement that these public bodies open annually to their constituents in the town. And the fourth one is another housekeeping item to ensure that the town conforms with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection regulations under the Mass Water Pollution Abatement Trust Fund. So that's the second article in the consent agenda. The third article is Article 3, which is the compensation of certain elected officials. And again, this comes up every year. There are only 2 elected officials in this article. It's the town clerk. Okay, we'll take that out. The next one is Article number 4, Revolving Funds. This is another housekeeping article which authorizes money for specific activities. The money that goes into the revolving fund is generally comes from the activity in the revolving fund. The next one is Article 12, which is the Community Preservation Fund Reserves. This is another housekeeping article which is on the warrant every year by law to set the estimated revenues for community preservation funds. And this is a routine article that comes before us each and every year. The next article in the consent agenda, all of those that I mentioned will be to approve. And then the next one is Article 6, which is the capital plan. And this article is going to come before us in the special town meeting, so we're going to pass over it. Article 14 is the Harbor Services Receipts Reserved for Appropriation account. And this article is going to appear in the special meeting. The next article is Article 21, which is the Indigenous Peoples' Day. This was a petition article, and the petitioner wishes to withdraw that article and not take any action on it. And Article 25 was another petition article to have the town clerk elected, and that article is going to be withdrawn by the petitioner because if you remember coming to a prior town meeting and making a change to the charter, which is still at the Attorney General's office. So for that reason, the town clerk's position still remains an elected position and will appear on the ballot next week. So the only article that we will pull out will be Article 3. So, Mr. Pigeon, I would like a motion from the Finance Committee, please.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes by a majority. Thank you. The next article we're going to take up, and we do this routinely out of a courtesy to Upper Cape, is to take up the Upper Cape budget. So we're going to take that, I believe it's Article 9?
Article 9.
Article 9. Mr. Forget?
I make a motion that the town move to vote and raise and appropriate $3,209,689 as its share of the operating and capital cost of the Upper Cape Cod Regional Vocational Technical High School District for the fiscal year 2023, July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Forget, usually we have the presenter do it first before we take the motion and the things, but Mr. Forget?
Madam Moderator, on behalf of Upper Cape Tech, I would like to first of all extend our best wishes and congratulations to you, and thanks for all of your service both to the town of Wareham and in particular to Upper Cape Tech over these past years. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Moderator, Select Board members, Town Administrator, members of the Finance Committee, and residents of Wareham, my name is Roger Forget. I am the Superintendent at Upper Cape Tech. I wish to thank you this evening, and I'll make it brief, of your support, both past and present, of Upper Cape Tech. It's through your efforts to fund Upper Cape Tech that we are able to provide the excellent education to our students from Wareham and to continue to do so over the future years and into next year. So let me start off by saying thank you so much. Is there any questions? Madam Moderator, again, thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So we have a motion on the floor. The motion is before you that the town vote to raise and appropriate $3,209,689 as its share of the operating and capital costs of the Upper Cape Cod Regional Vocational Technical High School District for the fiscal year 2023, July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, passes by a majority. Okay. We have a special town meeting. I don't think we're quite at 7:30, are we not? Yeah, we have 5 minutes. Under the state law, I get to regulate the meeting, and I think there's been a lot of concern and interest in 2 articles. One is the report of the Deacon Steering Committee, and the other is the petition article. So I'm going to take these up at the beginning of the meeting because I think it's important that we have people here. And so we're going to take Article 5, which is the report. And actually, we have 3 reports. We have a report from Mr. Teitelbaum, I believe, from Redevelopment. We have a report from the Chief of Police on the police feasibility study, and then the Deacon's one. So, Mr. Teitelbaum, if you'd like to give your report.
Thanks.
Oh, wait a minute. First of all, we have to take a vote to hear the report. Have a motion to hear the report, please.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town vote to approve Article 5 as printed in the warrant.
Have a motion and a second to hear the reports. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Mr. Teitelbaum.
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator, members of the body. It's the report of the Wareham Redevelopment Authority. During the past year, the Redevelopment Authority has seen continued progress on the Littleton Drive affordable housing project, including the news that the developer has secured the first round of state tax credits for the senior housing phase of the project. The developer has also secured the initial round of funding for the second phase of the project. What is interesting here is typically if you're doing a project that has a senior affordable component and you have a family component, the state usually makes you do the family component first, because they know that very often developers will, or officials will try to push the senior housing aspect, and then magically the family housing doesn't happen. In this instance, the State Department of Housing and Community Development had sufficient confidence in the cooperation between the town, the Redevelopment Authority, and the developer that they actually went for the senior housing first. So we expect that there will be possibly a groundbreaking this summer even. Secondly, we've also worked extensively with Tricia Wartz, a retired marketing professional who generously volunteered her time conducting resident and business owner outreach interviews regarding what people might wish to see done in Wareham Village. Her work produced information and analysis that is very useful to the consultant who is preparing the urban renewal plan for the village on behalf of the Redevelopment Authority. And finally, the WRA is pleased that we have a social equity minority-owned cannabis business leasing our 4 Recovery Road property, thus generating revenue and jobs from that property. We look forward to more successes to announce in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Titlebaum. Chief Correa?
Test. Madam Moderator, through you to the body. Good evening. My name is Walter W. Correa, Jr., and I'm honored and privileged to serve the town of Wareham as the Chief of Police. At the fall 2019 town meeting, Town Administrator Derek Sullivan presented an article to raise, appropriate, transfer, or borrow $165,000 for a feasibility study of a new public safety building, preliminary design, and appraisal of the current police facility. The town voted 169 in favor and 10 opposed the transfer of the $165,000 from the Municipal Facility Stabilization Fund to fund the article. The Select Board appointed a Public Safety Complex Study Committee. The Public Safety Complex Study Committee was formed and held its first meeting on January 30th, 2020. The study committee consists of members of this community and representatives from town boards, committees, EMS, Wareham Fire, and Wareham Police. At this first meeting, the town administrator brought forward the charge of the committee as passed at the fall 2019 town meeting and called the first Public Safety Complex Study Committee meeting to order. The committee determined that the first course of action would be to evaluate and determine the scope of the project for the public safety complex going forward and to reach out to other Wareham Town public safety entities to see if there was vested interest to be inclusive in the new public safety complex or merely take part by extension or by virtue of the cohesive working relationships already in place between EMS, Department of Natural Resources, Emergency Preparedness, Wareham Fire, Onset Fire, and the Wareham Police Department. The most important conversation was the potential location for the proposed new public safety complex. The committee visited several properties owned by the town and privately owned properties as well. Privately owned properties would have added substantial cost to the project. The committee's consensus was that buying a property would add considerable expense and savings could be better applied to the project. The potential properties owned by the town were presented and the possible site locations. 1, Minot Ave, town-owned property of 26 acres between Depot Crossing Apartments and the Brandy Hill Apartments. Number 2, the John W. Deacon School property located at 760 Main Street. And 3, the current location of the Wareham Police Department at 2515 Cranberry Highway. The committee visited many other recently built public safety facilities to understand better what absolute amenities should be included in a modern facility. We wanted to learn what other towns both planned for or didn't plan for, or what they did include that maybe they wish they hadn't spent the money on or had done differently. A primary goal of the committee was to formulate the scope of feasibility study, including all the necessary components in a request for proposal, to outline and determine the task that an architectural firm would need to evaluate and consider in a feasibility study. The committee met and interviewed 3 architectural firms, and after considerable deliberation, Tecton was chosen as the architectural firm and is currently undertaking the first phase, which is a spatial needs study. The Public Safety Complex Study Committee is looking forward to having a feasibility report by midsummer and a final recommendation in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dalmeyer, the Deacon Steering Committee.
If I can just raise this up a little bit. Thank you, Madam Moderator, to you through the body, or to the body through you. My name is John Dalmeyer. I'm the clerk for the Deacon Steering Committee. This report is a little bit thick, so I'm going to move quickly. It's in your pamphlet. Please follow along. The Deacon Steering Committee mission composed of 3 basic ideas. One was to provide a recommendation to the town on the use of the Deacon facility as a public space, to perform an architectural assessment on building suitability, and to deliver a final report at the town meeting in fall 2022. We decided to share the initial, there's some slides, excellent. We decided to share some initial findings so far since there's been a lot of interest on this. The first major finding was architectural assessment. Data has been gathered from the Council of Aging and community groups. The layout of the building is very well suited towards the programmatic needs of these groups. A preliminary floor plan has been put together outlining each use and proposed location, including an indoor walking loop. The condition of the building is such that it is suitable for immediate use with some basic cleaning. The only requirement related to a change of use is the requirement for the building to have an accessible entrance, which it already exists. There is no requirement to abate any material such as asbestos unless it is directly impacted by a renovation. I'm moving, that's one slide further, sorry, moving a little quick. The only scenario where an ADA toilet room upgrade could be required is if the town or building tenant chooses to renovate portions of the building in excess of certain dollar thresholds. These vary based on what is renovated, but generally start around $100,000 for architectural and $500,000 for electrical, mechanical, and plumbing systems. A full building accessibility upgrade would only be triggered by renovations in excess of 30% of the building's, quote, full and fair cash value, so in excess of $2.2 million. It is not anticipated that any tenant renovations would exceed this value. These restrictions could be noted in any RFP for tenants the town issues. At some point, the original toilet rooms are retrofit to accommodate accessibility as best as possible, and some close, but none are currently 100% compliant. Jones Payne suggests that the committee consider renovating a set of toilet rooms to be compliant as part of a later phase of the project. There may be CDBG grants available specifically for the toilet room accessibility. And then that one, yeah, that's the next slide. We've also received several letters of interest from the community. The first one is South Shore Community Action Council. Currently serves 68 income-eligible children with early education and wraparound services to support their families. SSAC is eagerly looking to expand to provide more services, and Deacons would allow them to grow in the Head Start program to reach 22 to 40 new pre-K students. This expansion would also create 12 more jobs in town. SSCAC is also able to access up to $250,000 in federal grant money to renovate their space to meet their specific requirements. They're looking for long-term lease stability. The next letter is from Gateway Creative Arts Center. The Gateway Creative Arts Center is a creative arts organization specializing in instructor-led and free-time arts classes. The center wants to rent classroom space to provide arts classes and free time to children, teens, adults, and seniors, including after-school and studio programs. Sponsored art shows will be set up in the courtyard of the building to highlight community artists' work. Gateway ABA Therapy provides in-home applied behavior analysis therapy for children, teens, and adults living in Wareham. They are currently located at 53 Marion Road and grown to 40 employees. They are at capacity at their current location and are looking to expand to serve more families. The Nemasket River Production Theater Company is dedicated to strengthening the quality of life in Plymouth County through the preservation and growth of dramatic arts. The company rents stage space for its 6 annual shows and wants to expand into the Wareham and Outer Cape area. The Deacon Auditorium would allow them to access our community. And Best Friends Pre-K, child care provider based in Wareham, serving preschool and school-age children at 2 locations, looking to expand programs to include before, after, and out-of-school care to children aged 5 to 10. Company leadership has expressed significant need for quality care for school-age children in Wareham. Next slide. For senior support, the Council of Aging has been located at the Multi-Service Center for years. The Multi-Service Center is unsuitable for continued use for several reasons, including being a 2.5-story building with 5 floors and an unreliable elevator and basement activity areas that require setup and breakdown between activities. The COA investigated moving to the library or Hammond School, but both were found unsuitable for various reasons, including parking, building condition, and the lack of kitchen facilities. The Council of Aging unanimously voted on March 18th, 2022 to support moving to the Deacon School, and 147 town seniors signed a petition supporting the move to the Deacon School. That's the proposed floor plan, which should be in the handouts. I don't have it in front of me here. We go to the next slide. That's my next point here. This is an estimated operational budget for the building. This includes utilities costs and staffing costs. The estimated expense is about $397,000 per year at a $1 per square foot value of $5.23 per square foot. Given the floor plan we looked at just a second ago, we estimate about 27,000 square feet would be available for renting out to community organizations. And looking at the average commercial real estate rents in the area, $16 per square foot per year seems to be about the average. If we rented out all of that space, we would net $432,000 per year with a net income of $34,394, not including any grants, additional funds. This would be just from the income sources of rental space. And then last, there's just some examples of some places nearby in town and around that have available space for rentals, commercial rentals, that is. And then the next steps, the committee recommends the following. Recommend town administration draft a request for proposals for community organizations as tenants. Establish necessary financial accounts to capture and expend revenues from future DECAS tenants. To move the Council of Aging to the DECAS School. Urge the Select Board to support using portions of FY21 CDBG activity funds for ADA bathroom upgrades and provide building access to the DECAS Steering Committee and the John W. DECAS Community Center Foundation Incorporated for cleaning and preparation of the move-in. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank all 3 of you for those interim reports, and I'm happy to hear them, and it will be interesting going forward to have them come back at the fall town meeting with their proposals. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have a special town meeting which is scheduled for 7:30, so I am going to recess the annual, and I am going to open the special town meeting. And we will take up those articles. I think we can get through it rather quickly, and then we will come back to the annual. So I will recess the annual, and I will open the special town meeting. Again, with the special town meeting, we can take some of the routine articles and put them into a consent agenda. I will go through the consent agenda that's proposed. If you have anything that you want pulled out, please say hold. We'll take it out and we will put it back into the rotation. The first one is Article 5. Article 5 is the PEG access receipts to Wareham Community Television. This is a housekeeping article. The cable companies deposit their licensing fees with the town twice a year, and town meeting needs to approve the transfer to WCTV so that they can maintain their operation. The next one is Article 6, and that's to return unused funds from a completed project. This article returns $56,325 from the Lopes Field Play Area Engineering Plan voted on in 2016 to the Community Preservation Open Space Reserve Fund. And because the project has been completed and there are unused funds, those funds must be returned to the fund from which they originally came from. The next is Article 8. That's the Tremont Nail Remediation Project. This is the annual payment of $35,000 for the principal and interest on the Tremont Neal remediation debt payment on the bond, which was approved at the 2016 Fall Town Meeting for the cleanup and contamination at the Tremont Nail Factory. Article 10, this is the Harbor Services Permit Receipts Reserved for Appropriations Account. Again, this is an annual bookkeeping article which allows money collected each year by the harbor master for permits to be used for maintenance and improvements, and the total on that is $4,375. The next one is to modify the quorum of the Wareham Historic District Commission. The Historic District Commission, according to the bylaws, is required to have 7 members. They are finding it very difficult to get people to step up to the plate. They would like to reduce the quorum down to 5. And in that respect, if they have 5 members, then they only need 3 that have to show up for a quorum. Article 13 is to modify the quorum of the Historic District Committee. And again, this is another committee that is required to have 7 members. They find it difficulty to get people to step up to the plate. They would like to reduce that down to 5 members. The next one is Article 16, and this is to add some revolving accounts. This article will add 2 revolving fund accounts, one for the Little Harbor Golf and one for the Deacon facility. Adding these 2 categories does not create, nor does it imply that the functions are going to be a reality. This only serves to provide an option should the executive branch wishes to move forward with either project. There is no money involved, and the source of any revenues would only be from those revenues produced exclusively by those 2 entities. And then the last article in the consent agenda would be to pass over the Harbor Services Permit Receipts Reserved for Appropriation. This article actually was inserted 3 times into the warrant, so we're just going to pass over it. It will come up later. So, hearing no holds, Mr. Pigeon, if I could have a motion on the consent agenda, please.
Madam Moderator, move the consent agenda as read into the record.
I have a motion and a second. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Madam Clerk? The special S. I'm sorry, Michelle. S3. I have a motion and a second to speak to the article.
Thank you, Thank you, Madam Moderator. Pages number should be 3, and pages number 2 have an explanation about these items. The Wareham Free Library roof is now approximately 31 years old. There's a history of water intrusion, and the useful life of the roof has come to an end. We get asked about solar a lot. Just for background, in 2018, ECA Solar reviewed the library roof for a solar panel lease, and they determined that it was not a viable project. Hammond School. The Hammond School has active leaks coming from the roof, and this will secure the envelope. The Wareham Multi-Service Center front portion, approximately 8 years ago, the flat portion of the Multi-Service Center roof was replaced along with new air conditioning units installed. The request is the install of a new roof on the front section. This building is actively losing shingles in storms and needs to be replaced. Actually walking out of it, somebody asked me if I was stacking the shingles to get a positive view, but no. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 3? Seeing no one's,
Madam Moderator, Dom Camerano. I have a question for the town administrator regarding the Hammond School. Besides the roof on the Hammond School, isn't the Hammond School in rough shape? And didn't the town want to entertain in selling that property at one time? Am I right or wrong?
There's been no action to sell it. We've brought it up as one of the overarching, looking at all the town buildings, if you will. The only one that's currently for sale is the Everett School. That's the one that's going to auction.
Okay, I understand that. But besides the roof on the Hammond School, isn't it in pretty much disarray to spend that kind of money on the roof? Just a question.
Yeah, we do have one active tenant in there. We'll have to put it out for lease again. That was one of their concerns. The other half of the building, yes, does it need, you look at the exterior of that, there's a historical portion that needs to be redone, so.
Thank you.
thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 3? Seeing no one else standing, I will call for a vote on Article 3. The motion before you is on the screen, and what you're voting on is up on the screen. Although this requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes by majority. Article 14.
Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 14 as printed in the warrant.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second to speak to Article 14.
Do you want the vote of the wards first?
Yes, please. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee voted approval 6-1-0.
Thank you. To speak to the article?
Yes, good evening. This article was put on by the Board of Selectmen. As people will recall, back in 2004, we first acquired the Tremont Nail Factory property. The purchase price, I believe, of $1.4 million. Subsequently, the property was studied and studied and studied some more. We had engineering reports done that said there was $10 million worth of work. That scared off a lot of people. People brought forward proposals to develop housing out there, but the Board of Selectmen at the time wanted all affordable, and that wasn't viable. If you fast forward to around 2017, actually 2016, the prior CETA director and town planner, Sal Pina, obtained state funding to start doing the environmental work out there to ascertain whether the site was clean or not. This is work that should have been done back in 2004, but was not. The site, as anybody who's experienced in the field would know, came back with contamination discovered, and so a second state-required comprehensive site assessment was done. Cleanup was conducted out there. Presently, there is one well out there showing a minor exceedance. That well has been showing diminishing contamination as time goes by. You folks were nice enough to allocate $1.43 million to fix it. We came in under the 10% contingency, so we only spent about $1.3 million on it. I was shocked that this was not a $5 million problem. The site is now going to be cleared through the Department of Environmental Protection without an activity and use limitation. Some of you may recall in 2018 or 2019, we created special zoning in the form of an overlay district that allowed for one marijuana use that was not retail. We had attracted the largest marijuana products manufacturer in the Western Hemisphere. Unfortunately, at the same time, Governor Baker instituted a vape ban, and after they spent $250,000 redoing the so-called steel building out there, they pulled out and went to Michigan. So we didn't get much out of that, as much as we wanted, but we did get the steel building shell replaced. Last year, we decided to issue an RFP, and we got one respondent, the Bentley companies. They came back with an RFP that talked about trying to develop the property more or less in accordance with the vision plan that the state had paid for in 2017. One of the things they had wanted to do that generated some controversy was to raise the level of the main factory building and turn it into housing. The problem with their submission was that the RFP we sent out did not contain provisions for a long-term lease. So, in an abundance of caution, so that nobody could claim that, had they known it would be a long-term lease, they would have submitted, we withdrew that, and we resubmitted another RFP, this one, containing provisions for a long-term lease. The same developer has come back and submitted a somewhat changed plan that doesn't change the appearance of the main factory building, which, let's face it, that's the signature piece out there. It calls for mixed use, it calls for retail, calls for housing, calls for preservation of the white office building as a museum. And so we finally come to the point where this property, where we've invested $3 million of your money and haven't seen a return, can actually be developed. Furthermore, the RFP response discusses paying the money back that you put into it over the course of the next 30 years. So eventually we will come out even on this. I would call this quite a win for a property that has sat dilapidated pretty much for 18 years and has done nothing but suck money out of your pockets. So I would urge the body to vote in favor of this. This is entirely legal under state law. I know the question came up at the golf course meeting whether the town could bring in somebody to manage properties. And the answer from town council was yes. And it is no different here. He has reviewed all of the documents. He has looked at the RFP. He has looked at the response. He's looked at this warrant article, and he agrees with those. So with that in mind, I would urge you to vote favorably for this. We finally got this thing to a point where you can actually get it off of your backs and make somebody else pay for it.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on this special Article 14? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. This does require a 2/3 vote. The motion before you is as printed in your warrant. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes by a 2/3 uncounted vote. Article 1.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town approve the following transfer within the budget lines in the FY22 budget as approved in Article 7 of the 2022 Spring Annual Town Meeting. Insurance, workman's comp, $15,000 for the Wareham Free Library, total $15,000.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can I have the vote recommendation of the Board of Selectmen?
Yeah, Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0.
I have the vote recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Vote from the Finance Committee is 6-0-0.
Thank you. To speak to the article?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This does not appropriate any additional monies. This is monies already in the FY22 budget, and it has moved $15,000 from surplus funds in the insurance workers' compensation line to the Wareham Free Library in the amount of $15,000.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 1? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for the vote. You're voting on the motion that is before you on the screen. It requires majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 7.
Madam Moderator, I move the town approve Article S7 as printed in the warrant.
I have a motion and a second. May I have a vote and recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
There we go. All right, here, come on. All right, the Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0. I want to make one thing clear. There's only 4 votes in these. That's because during a Zoom meeting, one of us got locked out and we couldn't get back in. And so that, otherwise, they probably would have voted. I just want you to understand that that's why that's going on, why there's only 4 of us.
Thank you. I have a vote recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Madam Moderator, Finance Committee voted 8-0-0 in favor.
Thank you. To speak to the article?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Joan Kenneberg, Community Preservation Committee.
We have the, okay, all right, it is a CPC. Go ahead.
Mobility mats have been purchased with CPA monies by many coastal Massachusetts towns, including Nantucket, Truro, Marshfield, Westport, Salem, and Newburyport, just to name a few. I've spoken to several CPCs, and not only did they make an initial investment of CPA monies to purchase mobility mats, but they've worked out so well in their communities to expand access on their beaches to everyone that they have used additional CPA monies to expand even greater access on their beaches. The CPC voted unanimously 6-0-0 to support this CPA grant request. Madam Moderator, I would like to ask the courtesy of the floor for Gary Buckminster to be allowed to present slides to describe mobility mats and their benefit to the town in more detail.
Absolutely. He is a town employee, and you're more than welcome to present your slides.
Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Good evening, Gary Buckminster, Director of Natural Resources for the town of Wareham. This is a thought process of quite a few people that were involved in trying to get better access on our public beaches. We've been looking at this for a couple of years, and we finally made a swing at it going into the season to have us purchase these mats. So I've drafted a proposal that will allow us to purchase 750 feet of these mobility mats. They're created of recycled material. They do not fade in the sun. They have, if they're well maintained, probably 10 years of heavy use, no problem with these mats. We've targeted 2 portions of Onset Beach. One is on the east side of the Onset Town Pier. We have 2 locations that we would be putting mobility mats at. We have 3 locations on the west side of Onset Pier going towards Shell Point. We're going to be targeting Little Harbor, and we're also going to be targeting Swifts Beach and Swifts Neck for mats also. This will allow people to gain access to the waterways, move along the beach. It can take mobility chairs, it can take power-assisted steering mobility carts, wagons, whatever people need to bring to the beach. They don't absorb heat, they won't burn your feet. If you look at the picture here, we're also looking to purchase these rollout deployment tools, which actually can roll up the mats and also put them out for us. It takes 1 to 2 people to move a mat. They're very lightweight, so it's a minimal workload for a small amount of employees to put these out and deploy them. They could be taken out during storms. If we wish to keep them in over the winter, we could, but we propose to take them out just for to save them. Basically, we're looking at $60,000. That covers 750 mats. On the first slide, you'll see that's $40,000 in mats, and then there's obviously shipping and handling. The deployment of the carts that actually pick it up, it's listed at $11,000, looks like $967. My eyes are a little blurry here. We have a couple transitional ramps that we need to put in some of the parking lots that can go to the beach just because of sand drop-off. So that would just include some lumber. And one of the nice features that we did have was actually having portions of the mats that would have, you could do advertisements. Later down the road, we could look at somebody if they wanted to sponsor a beach, if they want to do something of that nature, and they could purchase one of these advertisement logo mats, and they could put their information on it. Obviously, we're going to be looking at pushing, people, carry in, carry out. We want to identify that community preservation is a big proponent of this, and we want to make sure that they're we show that these mats are being paid through this funding, and just recognize each beach in the town of Wareham. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said? On my left? Please go to the microphone. Please go to the microphone, and all questions are directed to the moderator.
Who's you? I don't know where to look. I'm sorry. Are you the? Okay. So, am I to understand that this is a $60,000 project to put plastic mats on the beach, which will be not breaking down during the winter because we're going to pull them, but will break down over the beaches over the span of their 10-year lifetime before the $60,000 is wasted? When Reed Sand and Gravel they make a sand that's used in parks nationally to make handicapped walkways that could be replenished every year. Reed Sand and Gravel right here in Makepeace makes a national park soil that makes ADA compliant walkways, and you're asking to spend $60,000 on plastic, which will invariably break down through use on our ocean beaches. I have to.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 7? Seeing no one else standing, I will call for a vote. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes by a majority. Article 15. We have
Madam Moderator, I move to approve this article as printed in the Finance Committee report booklet.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Could you speak into the microphone?
I move to approve this article as printed in the Finance Committee report booklet.
I have a motion and a second. I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Selectmen voted 3-1-0.
I have the vote of and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee vote was 7-0-0. The Solar Bylaw Study Committee was appointed by the Board of Selectmen, and they drafted this bylaw amendment to comply with the requirements of Massachusetts General Law, Section 40A, Section 3, and other relevant authority. The proposed bylaw imposes certain restrictions on solar development. After research and input from the community, the Solar Bylaw Study Committee determined that in certain instances, the public health, safety, or welfare outweighs the public need for some solar energy systems. The Finance Committee supports the bylaw amendment because it protects important municipal interests, including environmental justice, protection against adverse ecological and financial impacts, protection of drinking water, sensitive habitats, protection of wildlife, and resiliency in the wake of climate change, while enabling the development of other appropriate solar facilities.
Thank you. To speak to the article, on my left?
Yes. Good evening, Madam Moderator. My name is Nancy McHale. I had the privilege of serving as the chair of the Solar Bylaw Study Committee, and I thank this body for the opportunity to represent the work of this study committee. The committee has proposed an entirely new solar bylaw, Article 5, Section 590, which is intended to replace the existing Section 590. Also included are the associated and necessary changes to Article 3, Section 320 of the use table and Article 16 definitions. The committee was comprised of 7 Wareham citizens with diverse backgrounds. We aimed to balance the rights of landowners to use their land while committing to protecting the health, safety, and welfare of our diverse community. Our primary goals were to put solar where we wanted it and to keep it from where we didn't want it. The primary goal was to support the state's renewable energy objectives. We acknowledge the landowner's right to develop solar, but we respect every citizen's right to clean drinking water and freedom from noise and glare. Okay? Some of the significant changes is that now the planning board is the sole permit granting authority through site plan review. Before it was split between the ZBA and the planning board. We feel that the planning board concentrating that authority within one board makes more sense for having all of the information readily available. The size is limited to no more than 5 megawatts DC in order to balance the competing land uses and understanding what significant contribution Wareham has already made to solar development. So Wareham already has 19 projects that have been built, 4 that have not been built but are permitted, 6 more potentially in the pipeline, and none of these 29 large-scale projects will be affected by either the revised bylaw or the proposed moratorium. Okay. Some of the protections for our sole source aquifer and our globally rare pine barrens and our unique habitat are protected with more rigorous studies, requirements for noise and runoff and lighting, glare, more visual screening, and more insight into the potential environmental impact. New on this is a requirement for historical and cultural heritage evaluations, and it also speaks directly to grading and earth removal, such that all earth removal must be approved and consistent with Article 3 of the town's bylaws. Okay. Siting is prohibited in certain areas, including wetland resource areas, Chapter 97 and or permanently protected open space, state historic register places, and most importantly, priority habitat, estimated habitat, and or critical natural landscape, or where 50% of the parcel is designated as shown on the Biomap 2 by the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program. And this is consistent with the state's new guidelines. Okay? And you can see from the maps, it's actually online, and you can get it's an interactive map, and I would urge you all to go and take a look at that. Thank you. Next slide, please. Thank you. Some of the changes include restricted siting is allowed with site plan special permit for projects between 250 kilowatts. And remember that anything less than 250 kilowatts, the state says you can put it anywhere. Okay, so this bylaw does not speak to that. Anywhere between the 250 and the 5,000 kW are allowed in most areas in town, except for the 2 smallest residential neighborhoods. The setback is 75 feet from the property line, and this does not include any additional required buffers. Important is the diversity of natural vegetation, which will be used for screening to ensure that there is adequate screening 365 days a year from the projects. The use of chemically treated timber poles is prohibited, period, and that will help to protect our aquifer. Okay? And fencing is required only for safety and at the discretion of the planning board could be eliminated to allow for more wildlife movement. Battery energy storage systems may be included only as accessory to on-site collection, okay, so that you can't have a large system and bring in energy from elsewhere. Abandonment and decommissioning, the surety for that has been increased to 200% of the cost estimate and will increase after a 5-year review, and that ensures the ability to restore the property. And I would urge you to please vote yes and support Article S15. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have the report of the planning board, please.
Madam Moderator, through you to the body. The board finds the work done by the Solar Bylaw Update Committee which resulted in the zoning bylaw amendment being considered under special town meeting Article S15, to be complete and effective in the regulation of large-scale solar energy facilities. In addition, the town must allow solar energy facilities within the community to conform with state law. Moreover, several property owners have filed so-called zoning freeze plans that protect them for 8 years from any changes in zoning, including any moratorium. There is a question as to what was proposed under the petition article and if it could be amended on town meeting floor. However, the board also feels that additional time to review the bylaw and hold back any new projects is a reasonable approach as well. Consequently, the board voted 3-2-0 to recommend both the bylaws and a moratorium under Article 15 as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman on my right.
Edward Pasevich, District 1. I just have a question. This article said it is trying to protect our water. Are solar operations allowed in Zone 2, where the aquifer is located?
To answer the question? Don't have anyone to answer that. On my left, gentleman on my left, do you wish to speak?
Madam Moderator, Carl Schultz, through you to the questioner. The area, I believe, Zone 2 was the wellhead protection zone. In the top part of the Bio 2 map that you saw, that green area is all protected and would not allow future solar projects if the article is approved. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Mr. Sullivan? Are you through, Mr. Schultz?
I am also would like to speak, but I'll wait my turn.
Okay. Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, I promise I won't fall down. Not a we will, no. Just to speak a little bit on this, there was a previous article that the Attorney General threw back at us because of the way it was written. And basically, everybody has to understand the state has made a huge commitment to alternative energy, solar energy. And they kind of bypass what's best for the citizens overall. We're fighting with this constantly now. And this particular article got written, and I was really concerned that the article be written in such a way that it would pass muster. So we actually reached out to our town council to ask to make sure that everything written, which usually we don't do, is correct and positive. So I would urge everybody to go ahead and vote for this. I can't believe I'm actually probably supporting Mr. Pasavage. First time in 15 years, I think.
Thank you. On my right?
Annie Hayes. I have written the solar moratorium, and I very much support this bylaw. The current bylaw from 2014 is responsible for 125 million watts of solar in Wareham since it was written. And we have to stop that bylaw from being the bylaw at all costs. So I applaud the work of the Solar Committee, and I will speak more to the moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. On my left?
Good evening, everybody. Jackie Nichols from the Solar Bylaw Committee. The committee notes that 17 of the 29 projects currently in town are equal to or less than 5 megawatts. There is no restriction against multiple projects in any of these allowed locations. The 5 megawatt limitation provides more buffering between project sites, thereby reducing greater visual impact, increased glare, and increased noise associated with the larger facilities, thus reducing the impacts to neighbors' health, welfare, and property values. These are issues which have been identified in the testimony submitted during the public hearings on projects that the town has already reviewed. This also meets the stated goals and policies of the Wareham Master Plan Update, which seeks to diversify the land uses, growing the town in a planned mix of residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional land uses, allowing alternative energy systems as part of the mix, especially solar.
I would also like to note that with regards to solar development here in Wareham, once a solar field is constructed and in operation, it's a relatively passive source of income for the town, whether via property taxes or pilot payments. In FY22, I believe it brought in a little over $500,000, and that's just for the ones that are up and running at this point. I've spoken with representatives from our police and our fire districts and
30 seconds.
confirmed that there is no pressure on those resources due to the existence of solar in town. Thank you.
Thank you. On my left?
Madam Moderator, Carl Schultz, through you to the body. I was also on the Solar Bylaw Study Committee, and I would stand in favor of this article. The Bylaw Committee studied the bylaws of many surrounding towns. We looked at the model bylaw from the Cape Cod Commission. We studied the recommendations of the Cape Cod Commission. We studied the recommendation that the AG returned on the previous bylaw. We listened to input from many townsfolk, and we did our best to try and create a set of standards that gives us clear guidance and better control over the siting and regulation of these projects. This bylaw represents a significant improvement in those controls and gives both the developers, the townspeople, the landowners, and the planning board clear guidance on what we expect from these projects, and represents much stronger controls than what we have in place today. The committee also recognized that the solar industry will continue to evolve and change. The climate conditions within which we live will continue to change, and the state law, which guide us, will continue to change. And as such, we recognize that this article will be a living document and will need to be and can continue to be improved as those conditions change. And as such, I recommend that we support this article.
Thank you. Gentleman on my right?
Thomas Bickey, I'd like to move the question.
I don't see anyone else standing, so I think we're all set. Seeing no one else standing, I will now call for a vote on Article 15. This does require a 2/3 vote. The motion is before you on the solar bylaw. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes by an uncounted 2/3. Article 4.
Big access receipts reserved for...
Mr. Pigeon?
Excuse me, one. I had the wrong one. Article 4, I move that the town transfer $1,760,000 from certified free cash. I'm on the wrong one. That's S3.
Yep.
My apologies.
S4.
Yeah. Thank you. S4, I move that the town transfer $330,000 from certified free cash to be used for municipal maintenance, the FY22 snow and ice deficit budget of $30,000, municipal maintenance, Deacon school facility cost, $200,000, and human resources benefits reserve, $100,000.
I have a motion and a second. I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you.
The Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0.
I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Seven, zero, zero. Thank you.
Thank you. To speak to the article?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The 30,000, I apologize, in the handbook it says 25, 30,000 is the accurate number. The Municipal Maintenance Department to pay for the FY22 snow and ice deficit. Then B, this article seeks to set aside $200,000 to pay for the cost of Deacon's school building, as these are not in the town's operating budget. This would serve to help offset the cost of the operating the building while the future is determined. Item C, this article seeks to help establish a benefits reserve for when employees retire or leave employment with the town. Long-term employees can have several weeks of paid time off that are required to be paid upon separation. This can stall the hiring of a new staff while you wait to hire for the position, because there's not enough money in the annual budget to pay the new employee after paying those obligations. Thank you.
Is there anything further to be said on in the special Article 4? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. This requires a majority vote. You're voting on the motion before you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. Article S11.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town rescind the town's prior affirmative vote on Article 26 at the 2021 annual spring town meeting and delete sections 830 through 844 of Section 8 of the Wareham Zoning Bylaw.
I have a second.
Second.
I have the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen.
Selectmen voted 3-1-0.
I have the vote recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee voted 5-0-1.
To speak to the article? Mr.
Yes,
Tyler?
Madam Moderator. With the body's indulgence, I'm going to say seated. This thing doesn't have a cord, and I almost got a hernia speaking the last time. We have to review sort of the tortured history of what's going on here. Back in June last year, town meeting passed a petition article that purported to create affordable units in certain areas where prior zoning had sort of taken away lots, if you will. And the purpose of the article, as we were told, was to allow these people to come back in without having to go through a variance process and go ahead and sort of re-subdivide according to very old zoning so that they could add either houses to the extra area they had on their properties from two lots that had been combined and so on and so forth. The areas that were anticipated to be affected were Swiss Beach, I believe Swiss Neck, I believe over in Cremecet, and also the Indian Mound neighborhood. The article did pass town meeting. It went to the Attorney General for review. Now, people need to understand, when the Attorney General reviews bylaw changes, she's only looking at two things. One is, does the article violate the state constitution? And the answer was no. The second is, does the article violate existing state law? Because remember, we're a political subdivision of the state, so we're subservient to their laws. And the answer there was no. However, the Attorney General did caution that we should check with the Department of Housing and Community Development to see whether any of the structures, housing, and whatnot created under this article would count on our subsidized housing index. Now, that's the number, the magic 10% number that we're all trying to achieve here, so we can keep out the huge projects like Woodland Cove. Because under 40B, once you reach 10%, you don't have to accommodate those huge projects anymore, and you can deny them. So what happened was, as I understand it, the Director of Planning and Community Development reached out to a specialist in the Department of Housing and Community Development and asked some questions, and a number of flaws were identified, and he was informed of that. Subsequently, the petitioner, who has an article to try to fix this coming up when we return to the regular warrant, drafted what apparently she hoped would cure these defects. She had met with town council, she had met with the Director of Planning. My understanding was that they offered to review the next attempt at this, but that for whatever reason she did not return. So what we have on the book right now is an article where Somebody who has a qualifying lot can go ahead, pull a building permit, because there's nothing stopping them. They don't need to go to ZBA for a variance. They don't need to get permission from anybody else, and go ahead and build a house. But the problem is the state is not going to count these on the affordable housing index, the subsidized housing index, rather. And so the article needs to be taken off the books to protect the neighborhoods as they are, because the promised benefit to the municipality just isn't there anymore. I understand this is difficult stuff. Writing this kind of law is very intensive. I can tell you when we did the Littleton Drive project, we had somebody from Mass Housing come down, that the state sent down to assist us. This was a person with a master's degree from MIT. When she spoke, it went right over my head. I mean, I practiced law for 25 years. It was Greek to me. I had no clue what she was talking about. It's very difficult for anybody to do this kind of thing without being a specialist. So I empathize with the petitioner. It's a difficult task. But right now, it's not providing any benefit. And so I asked the board if they would vote to put this on the warrant. They did. And I asked the board if they would vote to recommend it, and they did that.
Thank you. I have the report of the planning board, please.
Madam Moderator, through you to the body. I need a flashlight.
I know, and I apologize.
This article came to the planning board late, and because it required proper notice of a hearing, the hearing opened just before town meeting. The board voted to approve 5-0-0.
Thank you. On my right?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. If you will indulge me, I am the petitioner of which a previous speaker spoke. I have emails, and if anyone watched the selectmen's meeting, I was denied the use of counsel by both the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, the entire Board of Selectmen, and the town planner. I went to DHCD. I also have emails from them where I collaborated with Raiko Hayashi, who is the director of the LIP program. This is nothing more, well, in February 8th, I was asked to come to the selectmen's meeting. When I went to the selectmen's meeting, as the previous speaker said, oh, this is tough stuff. He wouldn't even attempt it. And to quote him, he said, sometimes it takes a few bumps at this to get it right. Anyone who has approached me, who has asked about the bylaw, I have asked them to wait until we could fix it. The bylaw, the zoning bylaw, took effect in June. The Board of Selectmen...
30 seconds.
And no one, neither the Board of Selectmen or anyone in town offices did anything to get this going. It will not allow anything to be counted, to not be counted, because the first sentence is the purpose that says anything built under this shall be counted on the town's SHI. And I'm sorry, I know that this is not supposed to be a personal thing.
Time.
Thank you.
On my right, Mr. Muniz.
I speak thanks. I rise to speak not in favor of supporting this article. I think although the original one, it was approved by the Attorney General's office with some considerations to be made thereafter. And there's been a good attempt to correct those, and I think we're taking the articles out of order in the sense that we're not hearing what the changes are to fix or to make the housing units affordable through the DHCD, Department of Housing Community Development. I think there could have been more cooperation between the town and the article to fix the article, which didn't seem to happen. As it's set right now, it has to go through the Board of Selectmen, the request to utilize the article, and be approved by the Board of Selectmen. So nothing goes forward until that would happen. Thank you.
On my right?
Yes, Irvin Russell, Precinct 6. My understanding of the explanation just presented is that it doesn't require them to designate it as affordable housing, but if they chose to identify it as affordable housing, then it would apply toward our
To answer the question, if someone wishes to? Mr. Titlebaum?
Yeah, I'm not really sure I understand the question. Affordable units on the subsidized housing index have to be approved by the State Department of Housing and Community Development. It doesn't matter what we would do. Under a normal LIP process, what you would have is somebody coming in. We actually had somebody come in last week before the Board of Selectmen, and they had a proposal under the local action, the LIP process. And they asked, for our initial blessing so they could go forward and spend money on plans and so on and so forth. But it's not up to us as to whether these go on the subsidized housing index. We can certainly forward those to the state once they're done and say we believe we have an affordable unit, but that doesn't mean the state is going to buy into it. And I think that's sort of the disconnect that's going on here with this article. One of the things...
Just to answer his question.
Yeah. Do I have any time left, by the way? Because I did miss one point I wanted to make earlier, but I'll bring that up later.
You just to answer his question was all.
For now.
He asked a question. I just want an answer.
Yep, that's it.
Thank you.
Town moderator, through you, my impression is that this is like throwing out the baby with the bathwater kind of concept. And, I think there's a more reasonable approach to addressing this issue, because it's being, it seems like you're basing it on the fear of something that might take place. But I would move to table this article.
Are you making a motion to table it?
Yes, Madam Moderator.
I have a second? Hang on. Okay, we have, Mr. Russell, I'll need that in writing, and then we'll have to take a vote on whether or not to table this. Okay, town council said he'll write your motion. So we have a motion before us to table this article. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Chair is in doubt. I am going to take a count. Will the tellers please come forward?
Madam Moderator, point of order.
We're in the middle of a vote.
That's my point of order. Could you explain again what we're actually voting for, please?
Yes. What we're voting on is Mr. Russell's motion to table this article. So the motion before you is to table the article. All those in favor of tabling this article, please raise your cards, and will the tellers please come forward? Oh. I stand corrected. It's a 2/3 vote.
I think any action on the zoning article.
On my left. 12. In the center.
56.
56, 5-6. On my right?
27, 27.
I'm sorry, 5-7?
27.
2-7. And in the middle, in the front? 2-0, 20. All those opposed to tabling this article, please raise your cards. On my right?
8.
8. In the center?
21.
21. On my left? 21. And in the middle? 18. Fail. 150 to 68. 115. 68. The vote is 115 in the affirmative, 68 in the negative. The motion fails. It does not reach a 2/3 vote. So we are back to the original warrant article. Is there anything further to be said? Seeing none, we now will call. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. On my right?
Madam Moderator, through you, Diane Kenny, I agree with the previous speaker that we seem to be throwing the baby out with the bathwater based on some unnamed fear that we need to protect these neighborhoods. A prior speaker spoke of protecting the neighborhoods, and I'd like to know what exactly, protect them from what specifically?
If anyone chooses to answer the question only, Mr. Titlebaum?
Yeah, I'll answer the question. Again, this article would affect neighborhoods that are already densely developed. We're talking Indian Mound, Swiss Beach, Swiss Necks, and Cremisa. These are areas, some of which were developed as summer communities when they were laid out back in the 20s, 30s, that time. And I understand there was a big urban renewal program in 1938 called the Hurricane, but nonetheless, there's already a lot of density in there. And does it make sense to increase the density in neighborhoods if the units aren't going to count on our subsidized housing index? You know, usually when we do these sorts of things, we're looking for not only the ability of somebody to, you know, make some money on a property or even add capacity for residing on their property. When it's advertised to us that it will confer a benefit upon the town, we need to see that that goes through.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on this article? On my right?
Yes, Madam Moderator, just a point of clarification. I'm not really quite sure I understand thoroughly. If I understand correctly, this article will prevent people from subdividing, and that is the concern, rather than whether it is just or right for the individual who wants to subsidize? In other words, is the concern that you would be adding additional housing into the area, and it won't be counted for low income, but the concern is not whether it is right or feasible for that person? Do I understand correctly?
To answer the question and to answer it only?
Yeah, I'm not really sure I understand the question.
Would you repeat your question?
The question is, what is the reason that this article is going to change the zoning? Is it because if you add additional housing into the market, that it won't count for low income? And is there any consideration given to whether it's feasible or fair for that person who does want to subdivide, and that seems to be thrown out? Perhaps I don't understand. Forgive me if I'm being obtuse here.
Okay, I see what you're saying. For the person who would want to go ahead with something like this, I guess, without the benefit of a law like this, there's a variance process. And actually, in that regard, as I was explaining earlier, we had somebody come before us. They're looking to put additional units down on Chapel Lane. And in this instance, depending on the density, what they're allowed on the lot, I haven't seen their plans, so I can't speak directly to it. But there is a possibility that they would have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and seek a variance in addition to the comprehensive permit that goes along with any 40B. So, you know, to that extent, somebody can already do this.
Does that answer your question?
Madam Moderator, I'd like to try to clarify that.
Hang on. Does that answer your question, sir?
Madam, I didn't ask the question. This gentleman did.
Oh, we already sat down? Okay. Am I right?
Yes, thank you.
Please state your name when you come to the...
I'm sorry, Barry Cosgrove, West Wareham. I find it odd that the proponent of killing this thing is saying that it's got flaws that someone explained to him, but he didn't understand. If your car broke down this morning, would you send it to the junkyard? Or would you send it to the shop to see if maybe it's only a $100 battery fix? That's the opportunity we have, is to just find out if there's a fix to this thing in a later vote. Throwing it out now is completely illogical.
Thank you. Mr. Muniz?
The lots would have to have been in existence.
You have to speak into the microphone, please.
The lots would have to be in existence prior to a date and time and already have been created. You cannot create new lots to utilize the bylaw as written. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on this article? Seeing no one else. I'm sorry, you're in a very dark spot. I apologize.
That's okay.
Am I right?
Madam Moderator, through you, Diane Kenny again. I have just a follow-up question based on what was just said. The proponent of this article claims that the stock would not be counted. Could we get some proof of that?
To answer the question?
I would defer to the town planner on that.
Town planner wish to answer that question?
Ken Buckland, Director of Planning and Community Development. I can't answer the question unless there's an application before me that presents the case for a unit that fits the subsidized housing inventory.
Is there anything further to be said on Article S11? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for a vote. This does require a 2/3 vote. What you're voting for is the motion that is before you on the screen. I'm going to take a counted vote since this is a 2/3 and it was closed before. All those in favor of the motion that is before you on the screen, please raise your cards. Would the tellers please come forward and take the vote? On my right,
7.
in the center,
26.
on my left, and in the middle, down front. All those opposed to the article before you as on the screen, please raise your cards. On my right,
18, 1-8.
in the center, Forty-six, 4-6. On my left, 6. And down front, 14. The vote is 88 in the affirmative, 86 in the negative. The motion fails to reach a 2/3 vote. Article number 2. Article 2.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town pass over Article S2.
I have a motion and a second to pass over Article 2. I have the vote of the selectmen,
400.
the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends 600.
To speak to the article,
Thank you, Madam Moderator. We have adequate funds to fund this fiscal year's parking program, so there's no need to pull from the account.
thank you. Anything further to be said on Article 2? If not, the motion before you is on the screen. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. We covered them all? Okay, we have covered every article in this special. I will accept a motion to dissolve the special town meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. The special meeting is dissolved. We will go back to the regular meeting. Okay, we heard the report of the three committees. As I said, I'm going to take the moderator's privilege because I know that this is something that has been discussed widely. I'm going to ask the petitioner to take up, because I think since we already heard the reports, Article 24. Ms. Davis?
Madam Moderator, Leslie Edwards Davis, I move to pass over Article 24 since the report has already been given under Article 5.
Thank you. I have a motion to pass over Article 24 and a second. I have a vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen voted 5-0-0 to pass over.
Vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
7-0-0.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak to this, Ms. Davis?
We're still talking about Article 24, correct?
Yeah, 24. I mean, is there anything further that
No.
you wish? No. Okay. Is there anyone else? I see no one standing. I will call for a vote on Article 24, which is to pass over Article 24 since we have already heard the report. All those in favor, it requires majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, it is unanimous. Now I want to take up Article 26, which is a petition article. I'm sorry, was it 26? 23. 23, sorry. Ms. Edwards?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. To you, through you, to the body. When we started discussing...
We need your motion.
Oh, sorry, thank you. I move the town act favorably on the interim report of the Deacon Steering Committee, namely authorizing the town administrator to, 1, provide the steering committee and the John W. Deacon Community Center Foundation, Inc., access to the building to assist the town preparing the building for occupancy. 2, move the Council on Aging to the Deacon School Building by July 1, 2022. And 3, execute contracts on RFPs, requests for proposals, advertised that call for a nonprofit preschool program, a solar canopy land lease, and a nonprofit food bank at the Deacon Community Center property, so the basic community needs will be met and the programs can begin at the beginning of the fiscal year and the 2022-2023 school year, or act in any relative manner thereto in accordance with sections 4-2A, K, and P of the Charter.
I have a motion and a second to speak to the article.
When we started discussing the possibility of a community center a year ago after tours through the building, we were asking you to believe in a dream that was not concrete, it was abstract. But I stand here today with 6 letters from interested parties who want to rent space in that building, 3 more letters coming next week. People who want to give the town money, that is concrete. And I'm not asking you to believe in a dream anymore. I'm asking you to believe in something that is real, that will bring money into this building and make it self-sufficient so that it can provide services to the entire community and all on its own fund itself through rent. I'm asking you to act favorably on Article 23. What community issues does Article 23 resolve? Using DECUS, repurposing it, would provide a safe and appropriate space for our Council on Aging, our seniors, our veterans, our disabled residents. The DECUS school is all one level and accessible to all. It could provide education-based organizations in our town who want to expand the room they need to expand. It would provide after-school options for families of all incomes, and it would provide an incredible space for community events, activities, services, enrichment, health and wellness, education, and we could be proud of this as a gem in our community. Article 23, what does it mean to act favorably? It would mean issuing requests for proposals for renting space in DECUS. It would mean moving the COA, which would address immediate constraints on their activities and accessibility and allow them to expand a program that produces income. It would provide building access to the steering committee to assist them in completing their charge. Some of the steering committee have never been inside the building or maybe been once or twice. It would also provide the Deacon Foundation access in keeping with the kind of access that other nonprofits in our town have to the buildings whose missions they serve. I want to point out that the Deacon Foundation, which is a 501c3 that we started to support this effort, has raised about $2,250 to date in a month, and we have exponential possibilities for grants that we are applying for and will apply for in the future and for future fundraising. We can pass this slide since Article 24 has been passed over. What are the powers of town meeting in relation to the town administrator? That's been a question that's come up. We have consulted with private counsel, a municipal attorney, who believes this article is lawful in relation to our charter. The town administrator shall supervise, direct, and be responsible for the efficient administration of all functions under his control, as may be authorized by the charter, by bylaw, by other town meeting vote, that's the key phrase, or by vote of the Board of Selectmen, including all officers appointed by him and their respective departments. So we're not asking for anything that is in conflict with our charter. Next slide, please. Where does the money come from? So the steering committee's report shows that just on rent, they can generate a small profit. But there's also a solar canopy that could be put over the parking lot, and we've been quoted at an estimate of bringing in $40,000 a year on that. Fundraising, grants, and the total could be much higher than the $30,000 revenue that is projected based just on rents. Next slide, please. This is how the steering committee calculated on the left, based just on square footage. Again, that shows an estimate of revenues after all the costs are paid for of $34,000 a year. On the right, you have all of the potential uses that have been put forth in terms of the canopy and renting it for events, et cetera. And there you see a net income of $289. So it's between one and the other, it's revenue and running the programs. Next slide, please. Could I have one more moment? What about repairs and upgrades? Only cleaning and small repairs have been identified as immediate to-dos. ADA bathrooms, there's money to do that, and it doesn't have to happen right away. Air conditioning, there's also grants available, just like the grant that was just used to put air conditioning in Town Hall very recently. And asbestos, there's nothing that needs to happen with that unless there's a major renovation. Next slide, please. What are the broader community benefits? Enhanced COA means people come here to go to our COA instead of going to Bourne or Marion or Mattapoisett. They come to our town becomes a destination, it's an amenity. Head Start wants to come to this building and bring 12 more jobs and increase the families served. Head Start brings grant money to make changes to the building. And no other path exists right now for us to achieve a community center and a better space for our COA. Next slide.
Your time.
All right.
Your time.
Thank you. Could I have more time?
Hang on. How much time are you asking for?
I believe 2 minutes.
I will ask for a vote for the body. Would you like to allow Ms. Davis 2 more minutes? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. You have your 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. What does it mean to act on the recommendations of the steering committee? So number one, it means authorize the town administration to draft and put out those RFPs, which is how we bring in that money. Authorize the town to establish the necessary revolving funds so that money is captured and is only related to that building. Move the COA to DECUS as soon as possible. Authorize the select board to support using CDBG funds for ADA bathroom upgrades grades, and provide access to the building. My final request to you is to vote favorable on Article 23. We can create an incredible space for all of our residents at Deacon. We own this building. This is the cheapest, most financially prudent way to achieve our goals. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Could I have the vote? Ladies and gentlemen, please. I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen.
We voted 1-4-0.
I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Madam Moderator, we voted 1-6-0. As far as the recommendations are concerned, it's a blatant no, and I want to tell you why. We are your agent. We've seen no report addressing any issue regarding that building from the steering committee. Nothing. And the group that is speaking here has no contractual relationship with the town. That, to us, is a very serious concern. They are essentially creating another department. There's no monies for it. If there is, we have not seen any report. We've seen their proposal for a budget. We disagree with many issues on it. We have not had the opportunity to discuss anything regarding that building. We are familiar with the building. We've been through it a couple times as a group, as a finance committee, and taken a look at it, and yes, we have many, many questions. We are concerned. One, they even talk about moving Council on Aging into there in July. There's no air conditioning in that building. They're moving out of an air-conditioned space into a building which was not built to have people in it during the summer. That's a school. There's 4 months that kids aren't in that building.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be respectful. I'm not going to put up with it, and if I find that you're calling out, I will ask who's doing it, and I will ask you to leave. Please be respectful.
We are not saying no because we don't like the idea. We're saying no because we know nothing about it. We cannot recommend to you to go forward with this because of that. That's the only reason. We have been for years trying to get a Council on Aging center for the aging. We have over 6,000 in this community. They deserve a space. But we will do so, approve of one, when we feel it's cost-effective for one and serves the purpose of our seniors. As far as the other issues are concerned, again, we've seen nothing, and they apparently are soliciting approvals from different areas which they themselves require certain things. But as I said, and I want to emphasize, the Finance Committee is not against the idea. We just know nothing about the idea to give you any kind of an indication as to how to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I ask for comments, I want to read an opinion from the Attorney General, because going forward, I want you to completely understand what the power of this legislative body is. Town meeting serves as a legislative body for the town, and as such, town meeting is vested in the traditional powers of the legislative branch of any level of government and the power of the purse. However, there are restrictions placed on the legislative power of town meeting. A legislative body cannot interfere with the executive branch on a matter which is in the exclusive authority of the executive branch. So I know everyone's very passionate and everyone has an opinion, but I want to tell you that whatever the vote turns out to be, this legislative body cannot tell the executive branch what to do. So having said that, please keep in mind that whatever the vote is, this is merely a resolution on the floor. It doesn't necessarily mean that there will be action. Gentleman on my right.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think we're putting the Thomas Bickey.
Can we have your name?
Thomas Bickey. We're putting the cart before the horse. My understanding is we have a final report due from the Deacon Steering Committee at Fall Town Meeting. And we sit here today with an interim report, not a final report. And so I think we're jumping the gun as far as voting on all these things. I agree with the previous speaker that there is no air conditioning in the building. The $2,200 that the foundation has raised won't even begin to buy the dozens of window air conditioners that would be needed in the building. And their budget doesn't account for perhaps a doubling of the electrical bill to run all those air conditioners all summer long. So if you factor that in, they really don't have an excess of money, as they suggest, in their budget. We've heard them talk about how the bathrooms don't have to be upgraded. If you've been in the elementary school or in the new elementary school, you realize that those bathrooms are designed for children. They're small toilets and low sinks, and it's going to be difficult for elderly people who are going to be going there to the Council on Aging programs to use those facilities. Whether they have to be upgraded or not is a significant amount of money. And finally, the last thing I'd like to say is that a previous speaker misspoke. The Library Foundation has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they don't have access to the library. Their access to the library is through the library director. They have no legal authority to be in the building, as the previous speaker has suggested with respect to this petition article. So I ask you to vote in the negative for this article. Thank you.
Thank you. On my right?
Edward Pasevich, District 1. Just a question. I believe the Chief of Police indicated that the Deacon School was under consideration for the new police building. Which is it? Is it going to be this, or is it going to be the new facility for the police, fire, etc.?
On my right?
Claire, I think I was.
Well, you sat down. I didn't.
I.
To answer the question only? Okay. Chief Correa, Mr. Pasevich wants to know if the Deacon School is under consideration for the Police Feasibility Study Committee.
The way I understand it, what I've been told is yes. Deacon School is one of the possibilities.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Mr. Pasevich?
Yes, thank you, Chief. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Am I right? Oh, I'm sorry. With the lighting. Let me take the one on the right, and then I'll come to you, Ms. Slavin. Am I right?
Oh, that's me? Sorry about that. Just a point, John Dahlmeyer, Precinct 5, I believe. Just some clarity's sake here. On the last town meeting in June 26, 2021, the Public Safety Committee found that, or reported, that the Deacon building is off the table because there were other uses the town had intentions. So if that has changed, I'd like to know what has changed.
When was the vote taken?
Yes, when was the vote taken? I didn't look through all the meetings of that committee, but I'd like to know more information about that if that has changed.
Just to clarify, at that time was when they were seeking to dispose of the building. When the fall town meeting took disposition of it off the table, I believe that's when the reconsideration started. So before it was to dispose of it, when it was being kept in as a town facility. So I think it's part of the tectons, but I have seen no immediate plans one way or the other. If somebody's asking if that's still a consideration from that committee, that's my understanding. Is it they're saying we're going in there tomorrow? No, it is not. So there's just still some points outstanding.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Mrs. Slavin, on my left?
Thank you. Excuse me. Sandy Slavin, Precinct 3. Not too long ago, this body approved the cannabis testing at the business just across the street from the school with the knowledge that this would no longer be holding children. Will we run into a problem with the state if we now put children in this school with a cannabis testing facility next door?
No, cannabis is legal.
To answer the question, if anyone can answer it?
If I remember, and I apologize, this is not, this is one of the remembrances, if I remember when we were going with the Tremont Nail. It's if it is an accredited K through such and such, so that was my remembrance of it. That was one of the.
This was before that. It was before that, when we were considering that Deacon School would be closed for schooling, we talked about, what's the name of the company? Stanton? Smithers. Would allow Smithers to do testing because this was no longer going to hold children.
Wait, excuse me, to clarify, we ran up against this at the, at Tremont Nail.
Yes, you did.
Because there's Little People's College.
Yes.
And we looked into it, and it was accredited K, so kindergarten. I believe that, so like a school accredited program. So that's, I don't know what the Head Start ranks at, but if that's what that was my remembrance of it.
So it's possible we could have Head Start children in this facility right next to a testing lab, just to ask the question. Thank you.
On my right, and please, only two at the microphone. We still have some issues with COVID, so.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Brenda Ekstrom. To a previous speaker who was concerned and claimed that the Finance Committee had received no information, I was at least 2 Finance Committee meetings where things were presented. A lot more information was presented for this than was presented for the golf course.
Mrs. Ekstrom, please stick to what is before us.
I'm just comparing. Now, as far as the building, maybe the previous speaker is not aware that the multi-service center was a school, and that it doesn't have air conditioning in the basement where the seniors are. This can be retrofitted with air conditioners as they are in several of the rooms over there. To another speaker who spoke about that the Library Foundation doesn't have access to the library, that may be true, but PTAs who use the town's addresses use the middle school. The foundation uses the library as their addresses, and the PTA certainly has access to the schools after hours. So I think as far as this foundation, there are no contracts. I confirmed that with the town administrator. No one has a contract with the town. And as far as what the moderator read, you read that
30 seconds.
That town meeting has no control over the executive. Administration is not executive. We pay their salaries, and if in the charter it says by town meeting vote. So the town administrator is not the executive. We can't tell the Board of Selectmen what to do, but we can authorize him to do what his job is in the charter. Thank you.
On my left.
Good evening, Madam Moderator. Ronald Bessie, Precinct 1, through you to the body. Just to answer a question of a previous speaker, as in relation to the cannabis testing facility that is across the street, or been approved. So if you go into the CMR for the Cannabis Control Commission, there are strict guidelines on how far, not just in school zones or where kids are, but playgrounds fall under that, home daycares. So there's a lot that would need to be reviewed in order to determine whether that would be feasible or not. And another concern that I have with this is I think it could be a great possibility, but there are other things that are being studied at the same time, and I think to jump to a conclusion halfway through a review wouldn't be doing the town any justice. I think we need to allow all of the aspects of the studies that are out there right now to be presented to us in the fall when the other committees that are looking into our services for EMS, fire, and police. I think we need to allow that process to happen too, and not just jump to something that could be a feasible opportunity for this town. Thank you.
Am I right?
Diane Kenny. I'm actually the chair of the steering committee. The interim report was put together because when we first formed the committee, we formed the committee with open minds. We hoped that we could come up with a plan for a community center. We were not guaranteeing it, we were hopeful. As the months have gone by, it's become very clear to all of us that it is doable. We'll never be able to answer all your questions. We'll never be able to allay all your fears. But a couple of other things. Prior speaker mentioned that the school was not made to have children all year round, and that's just not true. There were children in the Deacon 12 months a year. And, if we're now talking about a public safety complex, don't police deserve AC also?
Ladies and gentlemen, please be respectful.
I find that there are a lot of reasons not to do it, and I'm not sure why. We believe that this community center will absolutely 100% be self-sustaining and maybe even a profit center. At some point, the town has to take a leap of faith. We've taken leaps of faith before on many other more expensive. We're not asking for money. We're asking for your leap of faith. I'm not sure why that the Deacon is back on the table for a public safety complex. It's confusing to me. I understand the explanation that Mr. Sullivan gave. But my understanding was it was taken off the table not only because other things were being considered, but also because of its location. People in onset deserve ambulances quicker too. And that's all I have to say. Take a leap of faith.
Am I right?
Madam Moderator, I've been Tanya Cruz, resident for a few years in Wareham. My question is, in reading an article dated in November of 2014, there were a lot of roof issues with the Deacon School. Can anyone answer if those issues have been remediated?
To answer the question only?
It's got a new roof.
Just a minute. Town Administrator, please.
Madam Moderator, through you to the, there was a MSBA project to fix the roof on Corridor E, which was the one that had the issues. So that was rectified. So there's a new roof on that section.
On just that section? So at some point...
That was the only one that had water intrusion.
So at any point, the rest of the roof would need to be replaced at some point?
Was your question answered?
I had the second part of the question was, at some point, the roof will need to be replaced. Will that be a cost to the town, or will that be a cost to the center itself?
Like any building.
If it's a town entity.
You're asking me to look into the future as to whether there's enough money in excess fund to, is it 15 years down the road? Has there been enough money set aside to pay for that roof through all the activities? I can't tell you that. That's I don't know at this time. So and hypotheticals are the toughest to answer. So if you want a real one, at some point that's going to have to be replaced, whether that's 15, 20 years from now, we don't know. We're hiring Crowley to look at the status of the the roofs. I'm hoping they'll lay some fears and try and figure out some things from there. I don't know when that report will be done. We just got the contracts from them, so, but that's something that would be answered probably a little better in the future into the rest of the useful life of those sections.
Thank you for that answer.
You're
It's
welcome.
just something I think the town should consider in making this decision, is what costs the town is going to have to incur to maintain the building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On my left?
Jim Gibretti, Precinct 3. I'd like to move the question.
Do I hear a second? I have a motion before us and a second to move the question, and that is not debatable. If we vote in the affirmative, all discussion ends and we move on to take a vote. If the motion fails, then we will continue with the discussion. It does require a 2/3 vote. I am going to try for a voice vote. All those in favor of moving the question, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The chair is in doubt. I'm going to take a count. The tellers, please come forward.
Ready? Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're taking, in the middle of a vote, what we have before us is the question to move the question and end all debate. All right, I just want to make sure everybody understands. Tellers, let's start over because I'm sure that there might have been some confusion. So what is before us is a motion to move the question. If it passes, there will be no more discussion on this article. If the motion fails, a 2/3, then we will go back and start talking about this article once again. Does everyone understand? Okay. All those in favor of moving the question, please raise your hands.
Okay. Get him so you can go to the bathroom. Oh, there you go. Run. Of course we do. What do you say about it? That's not the charge of this committee. That is not the charge of this committee.
On my right.
9.
9. In the center.
Any use. 51.
5-1.
Police department about it.
51.
Who did?
On my left.
No, they didn't.
24.
I'm a member of the committee. They did not.
In the center.
No.
Yeah, up front. 28.
The ambulance service.
All those opposed to ending the debate.
Police department likes it. It's not on your taxes.
On my right,
17.
in the center,
25.
25. On my left, 8. Up front, 19. $112 in the affirmative and 69.
112 for, 69 against, so.
The votes are 112 in the affirmative, 69 in the negative. It does not meet the 2/3 required vote. Motion fails. So we are back to the original discussion of Article 23. Jody, I think you were.
I was standing too.
Yeah, get up. Give it a pitch.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I just want to, it's going to be repetitive of some of the things that were already said, but the lack of information, I'm not opposed to the concept, but information is vital. I looked at this sheet, the only thing I agreed with is the total square feet, because I went in there with a tape measure and measured. The rest of it, I find questionable. I did do the walking tour last Tuesday, that rainy Tuesday. Getting back to the roof, there was one active leak and one possible leak. The ceiling was stained. That's all. I can't say it was a leak or not. I totally disagree with the bathrooms can be jury-rigged. They need to be totally rehabbed and enlarged. The first one I went into, I'm not sure you could get a wheelchair around the corner. That's another thing is the boiler. There's 2 boilers in that school. 3. One is the original.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be respectful.
The information I was given, if I'm wrong, then I stand corrected. But that school, I was surprised that we didn't get the report what other uses that school could be. I thought this was all going to come forward in the fall, and I was very disappointed to see what came out now in the lack of information. Thank you.
Thank you. On my left? Yes.
Hi, Madam Moderator. My name is Pam Foley, and I'm with Precinct 1. My question is about the boiler. I was wondering if we could get any information on when it was updated, because we were talking about heating and cooling will be a consideration, of course, in the summer. But can we get some idea of what the town has already paid and put out for this school or this building for, you know, what kind of money did we put into it so far in the boiler system, and what would be done for the air conditioning if they were to go in there on July 1st, what would be the proposed options? So I guess it's 2 questions.
To answer the question?
Thank you. Yeah, the 2 boilers, if you go in there, they were upgraded, I believe it was in 2018 as part of the full project, the roof and boiler, so those were fully replaced.
At what cost to the town?
Geez, what was that, about 1.2?
2.4.
2.4, thank you.
So we've already put $2.4 million into a boiling system?
Roof and boiler.
Okay. And for the air conditioning, that if it was to go in July, what are we talking about doing for air conditioning? The steering committee, I guess that's a question for them. What were their plans for the elders?
To answer the question only?
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny?
Yes. Right now, we have not included the cost of installing air conditioning, but Mr. Sullivan actually had someone come in and take a look at the building to figure out what the cost would be. We have identified many, many grants. There are many grants out there to rehab schools into other uses. It's a favored status in the federal and the state government. They like to see schools reused, especially
To answer the question about air conditioning.
There are many grants available And some of the rooms actually already have air conditioning.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you wouldn't be able to take some from the municipal building now and put those into the other rooms? Or is that a plan, or would that be something you would do or not do?
To answer the question, Mrs. Kenny, if you wish to answer the question.
Maybe Mr. Sullivan.
Yes, if we were allowed to move air conditioning over, especially any of the COA areas that would now be empty, yes, absolutely.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. On my right,
Nadia Mellum. I happen to be the architect who is working on the feasibility study as well as a resident of town. And I would like to address a few of the architectural items that have come up in some previous comments.
I'm sorry, would you state your name again?
Nadia Mellum. I'm an architect. I live in town, and I'm also the one under contract to be doing the feasibility study for this project.
Are you a registered voter?
Yes.
Okay.
Precinct 1. All the toilets in this building are adult-sized. There are no children-sized toilets in the building. What were the teachers' toilets are not accessible, but what were the large toilet rooms, the multiple toilet rooms, those did have ADA upgrades done to them, so they are usable. They are not 100% perfect, but they are pretty damn close. And so they are usable as is. The roof, the leaks have been addressed. I am not aware of any new leaks in the building. I have toured through a few times over the last month and have not seen any evidence of new roof leaks. The boiler, as was discussed earlier, there's 3 brand new boilers. $2.4 million was invested into the building that the town paid for, and those were put in 2017. The building itself is a very high quality building. The walls are concrete block. The framing is glue laminated timber, and this is not the kind of building that we could afford to build now. If you were to walk through the new elementary school, there is drywall all over the place, and we don't have that in this building, and it would be a shame for it to sit empty any longer. As we all know, buildings that sit empty fall apart, and then we have to spend even more money to bring them back to life.
Thank you. On my left?
Madam Moderator, you have 2 people up front that were standing before me.
Okay, I thought they came after you. Okay, Mr. Hurd, is that Mr. Hurd?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Moderator. A lot of the items that you've brought up are definitely needed by the town. I don't think anybody can deny that the town needs a lot of these services. But as a group deciding how to spend town money, and that's all of us right now, are we making the right decision? Have we looked at everything, all the options, and what the costs are, what the benefits are? I haven't heard any of that tonight. I haven't heard you talk about putting the police station there, except to someone to say, well, they turned it down. No, the committee didn't turn it down. The building committee didn't turn it down. It's still a good location, more a police station. And I would have expected this group to invite the police department to talk to them about it. They didn't. How about Serpent? Serpent did a big study on that property, and we haven't heard why that's not the best thing for the town to do. And that's what we need to do. Look at the options. Let's not push this. The committee's out there, they're dedicated, they're hardworking, but let's let them look at all the options and tell us what is the best option for the town and why. I urge you to turn this down at this point.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I took this out of order because I felt it was important and that we have a good discussion, but I don't want to spend an enormous amount of time on this, knowing, as I said at the beginning, that this is merely a resolution, and no matter what the vote is, this body can't make that decision. So I'm going to allow the people that are in line to have their say, and then I'm going to call for the vote. We have almost another whole number of articles that we need to get to, which means we're probably going to have to come back tomorrow night. So I want to move this along, and as a moderator, I do have that prerogative to set a time limit, and so I'm going to allow those who were standing to have their say, and then I'm going to call for a vote. On my left.
Jared Chadwick, East Wareham. I would like to say I would love to see this place as a community center, a place where the youth and the elderly can come together, work together. I know right now that I'm the president of a nonprofit, I'm a president of a youth program that we use those fields at, and that place is crucial for this. I do agree with 1 up there, and I do agree with 3. I would like to see them start making money on the property to pay for the repairs needed before we move in anyone into the facility that needs to be done to it. But I think Deacon would be a beautiful place for a community center, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. On my right?
Thomas Pickey. I just have 2 questions. Through you to the town council, unless the steering committee and the John Deacon Community Center Foundation work free as volunteers, if any of them draw a salary, isn't it required that an RFP go out and allow other potential managers to run the building? That's my first question. And my second question is, the multi-service center's primary occupant right now is the Council on Aging. What is it going to cost the town to keep that building up and running with nobody in it, or a small cadre of people in it? Thank you.
To answer the question, town council will answer your question.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Through you to the previous speaker, I can answer one of the 2 questions, and that being what procurement processes would be necessary for any of this to go forward. It's pretty clear that if any particular paid individuals, paid corporations, paid associations, paid partnerships were going to be involved in the operation of this facility, there would have to be some sort of procurement process. The degree of the complexity of the procurement process depends on the amount of money being charged. It's not clear at this point what level of procurement would be required, but it's fair to say that some procurement will be required for tenants to be able to come in, for corporations to be involved, and for any activity that involves either the town payment of funds to outside entities or to the receipt of funds by outside entities, from outside entities to the town. Thank you. On the second question, I'm sorry, I just don't have the answer on that.
Thank you. On my left?
Jody Santagate. I stood here and I was listening and I wasn't sure, and I wear several hats in town. I'm on the steering committee, I'm on the Deacon Foundation, and I'm also in the informal group, but above that I'm the clerk with the COA and I'm a daughter of an elder in town, and I wasn't really sure how I was going to approach the microphone. But I've heard several inaccuracies being said here tonight. I would just like to let you know that as the clerk of the COA, I've done some research, and our elders have been patiently waiting for a safe place to be, for them to come and have activities for well over a decade. They've looked at the Hammond, they've looked at the library, and for valid reasons, they chose not to go there. I heard a question earlier about the air conditioning. How much would that cost to run air conditioning for the COA to be there during the summer? Well, a little while ago, we allocated, through the town administrator, we passed on the vote for $200,000. It's already in the budget for the next year for that. I heard somebody say, well, the toilets are probably little over there. The seniors that I know, the seniors that I watch every week, day in and day out, climb from that basement up the stairs, down the hallway to use the adult-sized toilets. I'm sure they would much rather walk one straight level to the kiddie toilet and sit than risk tripping up the stairs like I see them doing time and time again. All of us have grandparents. If we're lucky to live to be age 80, 89, where we can go and get into a facility to have fun, socialize rather than being homebound, that would be great. The seniors, they don't want to wait anymore.
30
We
seconds.
need to take a leap of faith for them and move to the Deacon. Thank you.
Thank you. On my right, I believe there were only two people standing. I don't know if the...
I'm standing over here too, man.
On my right,
Yes, Hugh Harp, Hamilton Beach. When you built the new elementary school, you planned, you executed, you did a phenomenal job. That was planned years ago to be done. Why is it taking so long to have this old elementary school without a plan, knowing that something had to be done, but took so long till tonight to have no answers? That's it.
thank you. On my right,
John Dahlmeyer, Clerk Steering Committee. I just want to clarify a couple things here. In regards to the budget, the income numbers are admittedly sort of up in the air. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry? Well, shouldn't have left the microphone. I thought you were through. Then you should have stayed. To answer his question.
The Deacon School was turned over to the town early this year, so it would have been January. Before that, the SERP had done a study and determined to sell the property. Then in October, the petition came forward, and we worked together to now do this step. And those are the steps that have happened so far. You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, if you stand at the microphone and you have a question, please stay there until your question's answered. If you leave, I think that you're done. Gentleman on my right.
All right, so just John Dahlmeyer, Steering Committee Clerk, also registered voter, Precinct 1. Just to clarify some of the points that have been out there, the income that we've looked at for this budget admittedly is up in the air. There's nothing final. But we have a lot of letters of interest from organizations who want to be part of this building, which is why we are recommending the RFP process go forward so we can actually get contracts signed to get those numbers solid and understand exactly who's interested. Secondly, for the expenses, myself and several of the members of the committee have actually met with town administration and other folks to make sure those numbers sound correct. They come from historical numbers from the school budgets of prior years with some money built in as extra, understanding the increased cost of running the building.
Mr. Dahlmeyer, you only had a few minutes left, so you need to wrap it up. You had spoken before.
Okay. And thirdly, as far as the other uses of the building, we did not explore the use of the public safety complex because as of the last town meeting I saw, the Minot Forest property, or I'm sorry, Minot Ave property was selected. And as far as the commercial use of the building, the Serpent report is the sort of Bible on that one, recommending the town demolish a building for $1 million and sell it to a developer. And the original article that established this committee said we will research it for a public use, nothing to do with anything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane Kenny for the last time. I've heard a lot of disappointment from the stage that we didn't present other ideas.
Diane, I think you've already spoken and used your 2 minutes.
Those are all to answer questions.
The clerk has you as having stood to speak.
Say again, I'm sorry?
The clerk has you down as having had your chance to speak.
Well, I have spoken several times, but it was only to answer questions. Can I have 2 minutes, please?
I will give you 1 minute, then I'm going to go to Mr. Muniz, and then
You
I'm
got
going to
it.
call for a vote.
I can do it in 1 minute.
Okay.
I've heard a lot of disappointment from people on the stage that want to know why I haven't come up with other ideas for the building. This one idea has kept us busy. It's a lot of work. We've put a lot of work into it. We also, it's not part of our charge to find other uses for the building. If you look at the article from town meeting in fall, our charge was to find municipal uses that included the Council on Aging moving to the DECIS. So we won't have any time to find other uses. If other people are interested, they should form a committee and find other uses. The other thing I wanted to comment too, I've heard a lot of people very interested in a community center. They really want one. They want to get behind us. Not one member of one board or one committee attended one meeting of the steering committee. Not one member of one board or one committee contacted the steering committee to offer their help. So they may want it, they just don't want to do anything about it.
Time. Mr. Muniz, I'm going to take you, and then I'm going to call for the vote.
Thank you. I started taking people through the Deacon's building last February to look at the condition of it. I took probably 4 or 5 small groups, town committees, and then some general people. It resonated with people. Building looks good. I like it. I don't want to see commercial industrial go across Main Street. That's not my vision for Wareham. And, you know, like the previous speaker said, you have a vision, you put together a plan, and it becomes a reality, and that's what we're trying to do. Police station study's been doing 2.5 years. We don't know where we want to put it yet. So we have a building. It would cost us $10 to $14 million to even replace something like that, or build it. Anybody tell me we're going to come up with the money for that? We're utilizing the fields for flag football right now. Babe Ruth, I believe the traveling team, baseball team, used it in the fall. Soccer has used it. The kids are down there playing on the playgrounds daily. It's utilized. It's something we have. We can use it. It doesn't have to be forever. I think we got 20, 30 good years in there. Might have to put a roof on it or this or that eventually, but it's a heck of a lot cheaper than trying to come up with a new building. They've been talking about community center, senior center for 30 years. What have you seen happen? Absolutely nothing. I urge you to vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that we have been fair, and we've spent a good deal of time, so I'm going to call for a vote. As I stated in the beginning, we are the legislative side of town government. We cannot tell the executive side what to do. So I'm just going to take the vote. It will be what it will be, and vote however you want. All those in favor of the article which is before you on the screen, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. It passes by a majority. But as I said, we cannot tell the executive board what to do. Ladies, over in the corner, I'm not going to speak to you again. We have other business to get to. Madam Clerk. Article 26.
950.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town accept to amend the town zoning bylaws by adding 830 through 844 inclusive as printed in the warrant as Article 26.
Is this Brenda's? I believe this is Mrs. Ekstrom's.
Madam Moderator, may I suggest a 1-minute pause while we wait till they clear the hall?
Yep. Yep.
Hope everybody is positive they can't be reconsidered.
This is in the cooler.
That's all right. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming for the other one.
Right.
Hmm?
Men's zoning bylaw, Article 8, is that it?
Ask the moderator what the rules are for reconsideration. I'll do it. I mean, suck it up. You don't want it. You don't know what you don't want.
It's 9:51. We only have until 10 o'clock. Article 26, I believe, is a petition article. Mrs. Ekstrom?
Thank you, Madam Moderator.
You have a motion?
Yes. I move an amended motion. The motion is, amended motion is I move that the town accept Article 26 as printed in the handout.
Do you have a copy of that?
I do.
Okay, could you make sure that the clerk
I
gets
will,
it?
I will. I'll bring it right down. May I speak to the article?
Yeah, my deputy moderator's not here. Okay. Okay, we have your motion. I believe it's, basis of it is amended as printed in your
The handout.
handout. Does everybody have a handout?
Everyone should. The motion's on the bottom of it. If I can just, Madam Moderator, through you to the body, the reason why I had to switch it to the handout is that the planning board, one of the members of the planning board was asking me about why I was using the AMI, which is the area median income, for one of the things, and when you read it, it was an exorbitant amount of cost to try to rent something at $70,000 a month. And I was racking my brain. I couldn't figure it out. The town planner had read it, missed it. DHCD missed it. But what it was supposed to be is the FMR, which is the fair market rate. So all as I did is pretty much just switched all the AMIs at the 70% for an FMR. But what this will do, so that's why it's amended. What this article will do is it will not throw the baby out with the bathwater. It will allow us to ensure that all of these that are produced under this article will count towards our subsidized housing inventory. This is already a bylaw. It's already a zoning bylaw. Flawed as it may be, it's already a bylaw. This is to cure that. So I urge you all to vote favorable action so that we can fix what was wrong with the bylaw. If you fail to, the bylaw is already passed. So if you fail to pass this, what you're saying is that you want a flawed bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. I have the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen.
Which number is it? 26. The Board of Selectmen voted 1-4-0.
I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Madam Moderator, the Finance Committee voted 8-0-0 to refer. We felt it was too complex for us to try to understand it and should be referred to some experts to review it and give us an opinion.
Thank you. I have the Planning Board report.
No, I think I can make it. Madam Moderator, through you to the body. The Planning Board held a public hearing on this article on March 28th, 2022, which was then continued to April 11th, 2022. The bylaw promotes affordable housing and small projects and additions. It does this by allowing the use of lots otherwise disallowed by changes in zoning and by allowing accessory apartments. This is an updated version resubmitted after the Attorney General approved it, but noted several potential problems with the draft. The new draft still has problems with the text. The Planning Board voted 3-1-1 to move for further study.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 26? On my right.
Madam Moderator, Irvin Russell, Precinct 6. So my understanding is that now that it would be changed to the fair market value, no?
Let him answer his question, please.
Well, let
him ask his question.
Was my question, that the adjustment was to adjust it to a fair market value of for income or affordability?
To answer his question?
It's not the fair market value, it's 70% of the fair market value. That is the rate, the rental rate that I was using. That will bring it down below what the market rate is, which is a little more in line of what people in Wareham can afford. You know, you have to remember, we're in the Boston market for this. So a 3-bedroom is $2,900 is the market rate. These are looking at in-laws or, you know, accessory apartments, 1-bedrooms, that are much more in the area of like $1,200 to $1,400. So it's 70% of the area market rate, or fair market value, fair market rent.
Madam Moderator, that answers my question. It's going to be affordable. Thank you.
Thank you. We are approaching the hour of 10 o'clock. If there's anything further to be said, I'm going to have to accept a motion to go beyond the hour of 10 and only to finish this article and no other article.
So, second.
We have a motion and a second to go beyond the hour of 10 only for this article. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. On my right?
I have Annie Hayes. I have a quick comment, and besides the value of affordable housing, I want to laud the value of small housing. We have an enormous problem with housing, population, climate change, all of these things. We know all of this, but it's very hard to grapple with. And I think small housing grapples with part of the problem. And I highly encourage it for that reason as well as any other. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said? Seeing no one standing, I will call for the vote. It does call for a 2/3 vote, and because this does go before the Attorney General, I'd like to take a counted vote. So all those in favor of Article 26 as printed in your handout, please hold your cards high. Will the tellers please come forward and take a count?
What do you need, if you think about it? You need a small bedroom, a living room, kitchen, living area, bathroom. You need 500 square feet. Square feet on one level. I have my living room and a dining room block. From my side, the sunroom, the kitchen, the bathroom, the daughter's one bedroom, and I have the other. And that's all I need is 1,000 square feet. I don't need a 2,000 square feet. I get 900 and I just, it's more than that. And I just collect my shit.
On my right?
15.
In the center? On my left? In the front? All those opposed, please hold your cards up.
There you go. It's tough to get 2/3 for anything. Oh, it's 2/3 now. I get 2/3. You know what the worst thing is? This was trying to fix it. So now we're stuck with the same thing. Yeah, but this didn't fix it. That's the problem. She loved going back to it. She was full of shit when she said that she didn't get to speak with town council. She did.
Yeah, okay.
And once we pass it as a town, it's up to
Okay.
us to fix it. We found this issues with it.
I don't care. That's the thing.
They expected Richard again expected her to come back, but I think she just wanted to jack on the right.
On my right?
6.
In the center? On the left? And in the front? Town council just advised me, we had a whole change in quantum of vote that was passed last year, so this actually is only a majority vote, not 2/3. Let me give you the vote. The yes votes are 50. The no votes are 58. The motion fails. No. I will now accept a motion to recess until tomorrow night at 7 o'clock.
So moved.
Second.
And we're out of here.
Meeting is recessed till tomorrow night at 7 o'clock here in the auditorium.